We're back to our NFC East positional ranking. It's the linebackers time. Will Luvu launch himself into the conversation? We'll find out right here on Ref the District. Let's go. Greetings and salutations and welcome to Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. We're going to go that way with the finger pointing on this one. And this is our positional rankings. We've been going down the NFC East and going each position, and we've been ranking them 1 through 4. Linebackers today, if you've missed any of the other ones, make sure you go check those out as well. And if you're checking this one out, make sure you hit that like button. Leave a comment. You can either comment now and let us know what your rankings are, or you can tell us we're idiots and we don't know anything about football when you hear which way we've ranked people. But this is how we do things, and we appreciate it. And then don't forget, you can join the conversation live on Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern, right here on YouTube, where we have the conversation about the linebackers and other Washington Commanders stuff. So be sure to join in. It's a big week for Commanders fans, at least those of us who like the jerseys and stuff like that, as jersey release is happening this week, Stoner.
It's going to be interesting to see what it's going to look like, because there's a lot of people who are jumping in there and saying they should do this and they should do that. You're not going to make everybody happy. I can promise you that. There's still going to be a lot of upset people, but it is an alternate jersey this week, the release. It's always fun when you kind of get something new to talk about other than the season, because we are right in the middle of the doldrums of the off season.
So bad. It's so bad to be in this part of the season, but that's all right. We got some good conversation to have right here about the linebackers. Stoner, we're going to go right into it here. In the bottom of the barrel, they're familiar with their place here at this point, but it's the New York Giants. The linebacker core, not as good as the defensive linemen. Defensive linemen actually had a lot of people who considered them better than the Eagles. A lot of Eagles fans were even saying, hey, they might challenge the Eagles for that top spot with all the changes at the line. But the linebackers here, I mean, Bobby O, as I'm going to call him so I don't butcher his last name, and Micah McFadden are the lead two for the Giants. Not that they're bad, but I definitely, when I was looking over all the information, I was like, these guys are the bottom for me, is how it came. You know, good, solid, but nothing. There's not the guy, in my opinion. Bobby O being good, but not as good as some of the others we're going to name.
Yeah, I think Okereke is. I know I was going to ask you actually beforehand if you were going to be able to pronounce Okereke, because I love how you struggle with some of these names. But Okereke is a tackling machine when healthy. Sure. That's what he does well. He's a really good tackler, and he's a really good player, team captain, all of that. Micah McFadden is, I mean, he's just kind of a guy who he's a good tackler as well. He doesn't miss a whole lot of tackles, but you're right. They're just kind of average players. When you've got a defensive line in front of you that gobbles up most of the space, then you don't necessarily need superstars right there in the middle. And that's what you have with these two guys. And Okereke is a guy who was down a little bit last year because of the injuries. He only played, I believe, like 12 games. But when he came over from Indianapolis in a couple of seasons ago, man, he's just a tackling machine. That's what he does really well. He was a guy that I thought Washington should have considered when he was a free agent there just a couple of years ago, but he decided on the Giants, and I think he's worked out well for them. Micah McFadden is in his rookie contract year, the 4th year of his rookie deal, so he's playing for something there, but I don't think he's anything special either. I had the Giants ranked 3rd, Nathan, out of 4, but I mean, it's kind of like the way the division was last year and all of these rankings that we're doing. You've got the top 2 teams, Washington and Philadelphia, and you got the bottom 2 teams, and the Giants and the Cowboys, and those are just kind of the way their rosters are built. They're just not quite as good. So 3, 4 Giants and Cowboys. I'm assuming you have the Cowboys 3rd at this point, but that's just kind of way all of our rankings have been at this point. They're nothing special in New York. Those 2 linebackers, they're good linebackers.
Yeah, good. I know we're going to get lots of comments about that.
Yeah,
they're good linebackers. We're not saying that they're not good linebackers, but we're when you're looking at the list of NFC linebackers, they're not in the top 5, right?
Sure.
And that's a problem when you're going to list out anywhere from, if 2 linebacker sets all the way to 3 linebacker sets with 4 teams, you're looking at a lot, 8 to 12 linebackers.
Right.
And if you're not in the top 5 and that short of a list, that's a problem.
Yeah, and then they've got their depth of that position, I think, is a little bit better than it was last year, but it's still not depth that you're going to be the envy of with other teams around the league. So they're a fine linebacker crew. It's a far cry from their old days, their glory days, and that's the way it is for a lot of teams. But the guys like the Carl Bankses of the world and the gosh, I already forgot Harry. What was his name? The guy Harry Carson, right? Guys like that. But obviously, we're talking about 30 years ago. Still, fine linebacking core in New York, nothing special. And in the NFC East, I have no problem ranking them either 3rd or 4th.
Well, you nailed it as far as 3's concerned. And I definitely see the argument to kind of flop these two. This is where I landed with this one. Eric Kendricks being a pretty good to great linebacker for Dallas. Overshown, I think I might like him a little bit more than some of the stats might lead people to like them. And they've got a couple other guys back there, I think, that round out a pretty solid linebacker core here for the Dallas Cowboys. But I am ranking them 3rd. Again, there is a gap, like you said, Stoner, when it goes from teams 1 and 2 to teams 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are pretty close together, but they're a noticeable difference when it comes to the linebacker course here.
Yeah, and I don't think at this point that Kendricks is even re-signed with the Cowboys, and so they may be without him. I believe he's still a free agent. He's out there, and they can re-sign him. But even if he is on the team and a part of this linebacking crew, you've got a lot of questions there in Dallas with the linebackers. You talked about Overshown. Now, he's a guy who showed a lot of promise, but he had a major injury, and he might not even make it back the entire season. They brought in that guy, Jack Sanborn. They brought him out of Chicago. If you remember, the Dallas coaching staff all knew, right? Their new defensive coordinator is Matt Eberflus, the former Bears coach. So he brought Jack Sanborn over from the Bears, which I don't know that's saying a whole lot because their defense was not great, but also Sanborn was a guy last year in 2024 with the Bears whose production was way down. His starts were way down than it was the previous year. So you bring him over, and he's probably going to have to play quite a bit because of the injuries that they have. And then they brought over Kenneth Murray from Tennessee. Now, that's a pretty good signing. He's a team captain. He's a guy who gets you 100 tackles a year. Nothing exciting. So that's kind of why I had them 4th in this division. But I don't have any real quibble with being 3rd or 4th with this.
Kendricks, by the way, to close the loop on that one, is still an unrestricted free agent, so not technically with the Cowboys. So we'll have to monitor that situation for them. But again, wherever you want to put these two, by all means, I'm not going to quibble either, as you use the quibble there. It's just that's when I first went through and was looking, that's how these two jumped out to me.
Yeah.
I can see the argument for the other side.
Bottom of the league in terms of talent, overall talent, bottom of the division, I should say, in terms of overall talent, and bottom of the division at the linebacker position as well, because I think we always talk about this when we're doing these positional rankings, kind of the gaps between each of the teams in terms of talent. I think 1 and 2, and then there's a massive gap between 3 and 4 within this division in the linebacker position. So in Cowboys, Giants, not good team, not good record, not good linebackers, not great linebackers, I should say.
Well, before we get to 2.
All
right. Stoner, with the defensive lineman, our last video, you really wanted to see the Eagles knock down a peg.
Yeah.
Because they've been at the top of the rankings for pretty much everything aside from QB.
Right.
And deservedly so. They've put together a really solid team out there in Philadelphia. And I saw the argument, and there's like several other people, like I said, who really wanted the Giants at 1 and the Eagles at 2, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't knock the Eagles down from their perch because I just felt like they really did have the best, defensive line crew. And so it comes to the linebackers, and I'm looking at the situation, and I'm having to grade Zach Bond and Bobby Wagner and Kobe Dean and Frankie Luvu, and it was just like, man, how do these guys keep getting away with it?
Yeah.
And when I started really digging into it, I couldn't do it for this time. The Eagles are number 2.
Oh, no.
They're knocked off their perch. I know we're going to get a lot of flack for this.
Trouble.
I know I'm going to get the Eagles fans all riled up, but I swear I'm not doing it because I'm poking the bear here. Okay.
Right. If you believe it, you believe it.
I believe it. I really do believe it. I think Zach Bond is good. I think that he had the best year of his career, bar none, last year. And that was a huge leap for him.
Right.
Okay. He needs to be able to repeat that.
That's true.
Okay. Sort of. We hear that all about Jaden Daniels too, right? A lot of people saying all the time, Jaden Daniels can't be elite. He needs to have a couple seasons of that way. There's no way and no world people would have rated Zach Bond at the beginning of the season, last season, as one of the top linebackers. He played like it last year, and he's a very good linebacker at that. Kobe Dean playing, as many snaps as his body will allow, is a good linebacker. And there were several times during those Philadelphia games where he was a bit of a difference maker and getting with his sideline to sideline speed, able to close off and not allow Jaden Daniels to run for big yards. So great linebacker core up there in Philadelphia, and they should not be ashamed to be number 2.
Oh boy. I tell you what, that entire soliloquy from Nathan there is just going to get murdered. It's just going to get just killed. But I get it. I understand it. I see where you're coming from. I can't buy into it personally.
Okay.
And what really kind of ticks me off with the Eagles and the talent that they have at all these positions is that it's all young talent.
Mm-hmm.
It's all talent that's turning over into better and better talent. And then they just keep resupplying it. Because when you look at Zach Bond, like you said, he was a nobody coming into the season. He was a role player in New Orleans when they signed him and did one of these, right? They said, I hope he can become a player. Well, he became a player. He became a top 5 defensive player, which is where he finished in the Defensive Player of the Year rankings. He was number 1 in PFF's overall linebacker rankings. He was number 1 in tackles in the league, and they rewarded him with a big 3-year contract. Good on them for keeping a guy like that. And then Kobe Dean, as you said, now he did get that knee injury late in the year, actually in the playoffs. Washington didn't even face him in that third game in that playoff game. But, man, he was pretty darn good. And he's a guy they picked up in the 3rd round. This is a guy in college who was looked at as an absolute stud at Georgia, a team leader. And then he drops all the way to the 3rd round for Philadelphia to just snag and plug him right in. And then when he got hurt, that Owen Burke stepped in, and he did pretty well and got himself a nice contract elsewhere, Cincinnati, I believe. But then they turn around in this draft, and what do they draft? A linebacker out of Alabama who did what? Just like Nakobe Dean, he dropped. He dropped to all the way down to them at the end of the 1st round, and that's who they took in Jihad Campbell. A fantastic pick. Those 3 linebackers, and I think Campbell's probably going to have to play quite a bit with Nakobe Dean probably missing at least a month, maybe even more. And he's going to have to step right in. They've also got, let's not forget, they got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., right? Now they got him a couple of years ago in like the 5th round. How do they keep doing it? It ticks me off that they're constantly reloading at every position. And so I have to disagree with you, Nathan. When you have the Defensive Player of the Year candidate in one of those linebacker spots, number 1 in PFF, number 1 in regular tackles, and I understand he came out of nowhere, but what he did last year was nothing short of amazing. And anytime you got that guy on your team, I don't think that you can put him below anybody else in the division, unless you've got a Myles Garrett, or in Denver, you've got a Surtain, or where, a Bosa or a Watt or whatever.
Sure.
This is a top 5 player of the year candidate.
Very talented Zach Bond, and
they got to be up there.
They do. They got to be number 2 in the NFC East, and largely because of the guy Washington has and Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
I know that there's going to be a lot of hate for the fact that I have these teams this way, and there's going to be a lot of hate thrown at Bobby Wagner when I start discussing him. Largely, they're going to say that his age and his speed has declined.
Sure.
That didn't stop him, by the way, from being the 3rd highest ranked in PFF.
Yep, that's right.
So again, not a drop off really when it comes to Zach Bond. And then I would add the reason he really is the big reason why, when I was looking at it, that I felt good about putting Washington at 1. Frankie Luvu, I think, is a rising star. He's a little bit lower on the rankings here, but he does a lot, and I'm excited to see where he will grow next year with the Washington Commanders, because I can kind of see where Washington is putting Luvu, and everyone who's going to remember him for launching himself over the line to stop the push tush during the NFC Conference Championship game. You're going to see a lot more of that, and he is an exciting player to watch. But Bobby Wagner was the one who I think pushed Washington over the edge for me. And if you're not a Washington fan, I understand if you want to hate this pick, but okay. But understand, if you were to watch all 22 tape of Bobby Wagner, he is always where he is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he is insane how much he understands the game. Several times during the season, we were watching our Commanders play, and the opposing offense goes up to audible, and the QB goes up to the center and starts like talking something, and Bobby Wagner leans into the conversation, backs up and starts directing traffic, and he was always right. Every single time. This guy is a talent above his physical traits. Okay. What puts him above the Zach Bonds and the Kobe Deans and the Eric Kendricks and the Bobby O's of this conference, or this division rather, is the fact that he is so cerebral. And if you put him in the midnight green or the New York blue, or this, I can't even see
whatever they wear in Dallas.
I'm not going to put him in the star. I'm not going to do that. But if you put him in the opposing teams, he instantly makes your linebacker room better. Doesn't matter that you have the guy who got 5th place in the Defensive Player of the Year award and rising stars in the linebacker room. This guy right here makes all of them better.
He's the best
easily the best linebacker, which is why I have them at 1.
He's the best linebacker in Washington since London Fletcher, and probably better than London Fletcher as well. This is a guy who's going straight to the Hall of Fame as soon as he retires. He is 34 years old. That's true. But he played 99% of the defensive snaps last year. He never, ever comes out of the game. So you can't say that maybe he's injury prone or he's slowing down. You can say maybe he's lost a step, but he had like 7 missed tackles all year last year, something in that neighborhood. He had less than 10 missed tackles in the entire season. So like you said, he's incredibly smart, intelligent on how to run a defense. He knows where to be. He gets there, and then he makes the play. He's not one of those guys who knows where to be and then just can't make the play. He also makes the play. He makes everybody around him better. Now, Washington's run defense was not great last year, that's for sure, but their pass defense was a whole lot better than anybody expected them to be. So he's intelligent. He's still a tackling machine. He was top 5 in tackles for linebackers last year as well. And he is that all-important team leader. He's the guy who's going to be in there with Jaden Daniels first in the morning. He works well with Jaden Daniels. They have an excellent friendship and mentor type relationship with Jaden Daniels. And so you appreciate all of what he does for this team. He wants to be here. He re-signed with this team because he feels like something special is happening here. So that's all of that is a really big deal. I just don't think at this point he's a better linebacker than Zach Bond, but that's a great argument to have. And then with Luvu, whom I really, really, really like, and what they did with him last year, with all the things that we saw in terms of what he did at linebacker, let's not forget he had 8 sacks from an inside linebacker position. That's pretty darn high for an inside linebacker, an off-ball type linebacker. So he is one of those guys who is rising. Nobody thought he was going to be the player that he became in Washington when they signed him from Carolina last season. So you got him, and then you've got Jordan McGee, who I'm really high on. He really put himself behind the 8 ball last year when he had the injury in training camp, the shoulder injury, really got him behind, but he came on strong. And I believe he's the heir apparent to Bobby Wagner when Wagner does decide to retire and go off into the sunset. But Jordan McGee, I think, is that guy that's going to replace him. So they have their linebacker replacement once Wagner goes. So I really, really like this linebacker room. And one other thing on the linebackers, Nathan, it's incredible to think, and we don't usually like to go into the past and kind of look at the past because now we are that team that is doing so well, and we try not to kind of poo-poo. But can you remember the linebackers that this team had in the last 4 years? And what's incredible about it, Nathan, is that you had a defensive-minded head coach who was a linebacker in the NFL, a darn good linebacker in the NFL, in Ron Rivera. And you had, obviously, the defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio, was a great linebacker when he played. And the amount of resources they put into that linebacker room was just mind-blowing when you look back on it for those 4 years. The John Bosticks and Cole Holcombs and Khaleke Hudsons and David Mayo and Cody Bartons and Jamin Davis. These are the guys that they put out on the field for 4 years, expecting them. Maybe they just thought, hey, we're linebackers, we can make them better. But those were just not talented individuals. And they tried their best. And now you go from that. You basically go from David Mayo and Cody Barton to Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu. That's a massive difference. And it's something to be excited about. And so I can understand why you've got them. One, I wouldn't have done it. But, hey, you're the one that's going to get attacked here, not me, by the
I'm sure I'm going to hear about how I don't know football and all
you don't know
other
ball.
stuff.
I love that one.
Bring it on in the comment section. Regardless, make sure you hit that like button for us while you're here, because we hope that you were at least entertained and we had some good conversations for you. We're going to have more conversations on Wednesday, so make sure you join us live 7:30 Eastern when it comes to that. You might be able to entice me to make a swap, or if your arguments in the comment section are less derogatory and more, impactful and constructive, maybe that will make me switch my mind on this one. But Bobby Wagner, like I said, future Hall of Famer. To me, he tips the edge. And I am excited for the rest of this linebacker room in DC. We'll see how it all goes. We'll probably talk more on that McGee thing, because I think people are setting themselves up for failure with that one. And I'll explain that on Wednesday. But that was our linebacker ratings. I have Washington 1, Philadelphia 2, Dallas at 3, and the Giants at 4. Stoner has everything flopped for me. He's got 1, the Eagles, 2, the Commanders, 3, the Giants, and 4, the Cowboys. Where did you put them? Let us know in the comment section. And as always,
oh, you caught me off guard. I was waiting for the until next time.
Until next time.
Kevin Pierre-Louis is the starting linebacker for Washington.
Be a fan.